Salve, people of the universe. Today we're going to be talking about, first of all, collective punishment. Now you might be thinking collective punishment is not a good thing, but I decided to come out of the shadows to make a case for collective punishment. And before you say anything, remember, you can always just leave a comment about why you think I'm wrong, but please hear out my arguments first, and then we'll be open for discussion. But so collective punishment, first of all, we need to define it. It is defined as the punishment of an entire group of a demographic based on the actions of a few. Yeah, that's basically the main way it is. But now we're coming to the point where the innocent do sometimes die in war. That's a fact. That's unavoidable in war. If anyone is attacked, then they will attack back, and there will always be collateral damage. Collateral damage is not preferred, but it is inevitable in war and conflict. In the West, we have a very bubble-like sphere around us that basically protects us from the truth of it, which is that the world is a violent place, the world is a dark place, and yes, we can make it better, but we gotta separate dreaming from naivety. It's okay to dream for peace, but naivety gets you killed in the end, because not everyone is going to agree with it. This brings us to the very prominent, currently in the news topic, which is Israel and Hamas. So first of all, let me just say that the numbers that we're getting for innocent civilians dying in Palestine are actually being supplied by Hamas. So you can't really trust a terrorist group. And some people say it's not a terrorist group, but we'll get into that later. But basically, you can't trust those numbers. But let's just say that it was true, right? Let's say that it was collective punishment. Well, think about it this way, and this is what I like to use as an example. Imagine if during the rise of Nazi Germany, right, when Hitler came to power, like right before it basically, what if in that time people started to collectively punish people with those fascist ideas? Would that have prevented the war? I do think so. Does that mean that that you're going to hurt some innocent people in the meantime? Probably. That's unavoidable at that point. But hurting a few innocent people to end the conflict permanently is more important than to risk a conflict escalating even further. Sometimes the fastest way to end a war is by completely disabling the opponent. You need to send a clear message. And a clear message, you can say, well, okay, we got to send a clear message to the people who are guilty. Which would be, in the perfect world, that would be the case. But sadly, we don't live in a world where that really works. Because an ideology needs to have a signal sent to them. The same way a Nazi ideology would have a signal sent to them, an Islamist extremist or Palestinian extremist narrative needs to also have a message sent to them. And this sometimes means that in order to send that message of collective punishment, you will have to have substantial collateral damage. But it is a way to send a message to the ideology. And some may say, well, isn't that escalatory? Well, it could be escalatory, but the opposite would be worse, which is to allow the derivative function of a people to basically become vengeance upon the enemy. The tribalist narrative that a lot of organizations share, especially in Western liberal, and I'm talking American liberal spheres like Black Lives Matter, which started with a good idea. You know, some people wanted equality, they wanted, because there are some racist police, that's just a fact. But then they took it too far, and then people started disliking it because they started burning down shops. And I like to compare those people. I like to compare the Black Lives Matter people a lot to the Palestinians, in the sense that, yes, there are problems there, but the people that are attacking the Israelis aren't really the ones to blame. When you really look at the history, the real people to blame are, in the end, basically the Nazis. Because they were the ones who, the Nazis and the Ottomans, right? Now, the Ottoman Empire basically conquered the Palestinians, and then the Ottoman Empire was conquered by the British. Then after World War II, the British mandate in Phoenicia, which is modern-day Lebanon and Israel, and that kind of the area, they actually gave the Jews land as a reparation for World War II. So they wanted to create a Zionist country for them to be safe, and so it could never happen again, basically. The persecution and the anti-Semitism was already very prevalent back then, so you start to understand really what's been going on here. Because the Israelis had a claim on the land based on religious beliefs, but there were Palestinians already there. And the Palestinians that were there were conquered. So technically, the British did have the right to put the Israelis there. The only problem is that they didn't really work on it, right? They didn't really they tried to establish lines, but the truth is you can't keep people contained, and this goes for the Palestinians just as much. You can't keep people contained in a small piece of land. Eventually land runs out, right? And people become more densely populated. This is why we're on a race to go to space. This is why companies like Elon Musk's SpaceX are trying to get to work on getting to Mars. It's the same concept. We will run out of space. We will run out of resources. We need to make our choices according to that. And this is what happens. The Israelis expand, and then the borders expand. But then the Palestinian areas, they keep trying to fight back. But then every time they fight back, it's like a declaration of war. Because this is basically the thing. They're the first real aggressive player in the game. So like, let's say I sit in your house, right? I go sit in your house. Well, that's trespassing. But in a lot of countries as well, maybe not in every state in America, but in a lot of countries in where I am from, Europe, you can't just kill someone because they're breaking into your house, right? That's not allowed here. That's not something you can just do. So when the Palestinians feel like their land is taken, and I think that that's probably a rightful idea, and that should have been something that they should have done with something with the international community. But at the same time, when they started fighting back and doing terrorist attacks and creating the PLO and the other groups that existed there, basically what ended up happening is that they started a war that they could not win. And then, because Israel won, they wanted concessions done, which meant more border. And they tried this again and again until now, where the Palestinian terrain is so small that there's barely any left. And this brings us to October 7th, because a lot of people also don't understand that Hamas was voted in by the Palestinians, but they didn't really have much of a choice, because the Palestinian, the Hamas authority, basically, not the Palestinian authority, that's two separate things, the Hamas authority was so violent towards the Palestinians and the locals that, it's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. But because they were so violent, the people had basically no choice, and they already felt oppressed by the Israelis for their land being taken. But at this point, they had started a war, so like, what did you expect was going to happen? So it starts with a little bit of injustice, and you see how it just escalates further and further. But this brings us to October 7th, like I said before. when a lot of people, including international people, were killed at the music festival by Hamas. Killed, R-worded, horrible things were done to people on October 7th by Hamas. And this is the point that I'm trying to make. The same way that the entire Holocaust could have been prevented, I think the Islamist extremists can only be prevented now. There is no way to calm them down anymore, right? The Palestinians are now just too radical. They are too radical. They need to be filtered, which means that all the sympathizers need to go. But the problem is that even if all the sympathizers go, the underlying ideology behind the religion of Islam is to fight against people who are against you. So it's to fight against Jews, like the fundamental principles. And we in the West have enough riches, right? We have riches in the West, which means that we have had the ability to evolve from Christianity, what it used to be, to the modern version of Christianity, which is to maybe believe in a God, but maybe you're more tolerant towards gay people, for example. Maybe you're more, maybe you live by the word of love rather than the very old, established, almost more similar to the Eastern Orthodoxy Church. We've had that privilege, but sometimes you also go too far in it, of course. I think that's very clear. But in order to fully understand and grasp why collective punishment by Israel to Palestine is now necessary, we need to keep that in mind, that the underlying ideology of the majority religion in the Palestinian territories is going to keep causing problems. It's going to keep spawning people like that because of that. Whereas if there is no land to fight for, and all the land's already taken, then they might calm down. I say might. There's no guarantee to that. But it's the only way, besides complete annihilation of all Muslims, to ensure the safety of all the other people involved in those surrounding areas, according to this paradigm of Islam versus all the other things, believers, religions. So it's so very important that we remember, though, that just because collective punishment is necessary doesn't mean we should be cheering for it. I see this a lot where people show videos of like, oh yeah, the UNRWA, like the corrupt UN organization that was actually tied in with Hamas. Look, we bombed it. Isn't that great? They're all... No, that's not great. Why would that be a good thing? The fact that it existed in the first place is a tragedy. I think that people need to understand that killing people, including children who are innocent, is not something to be cheerful of. But it is a harsh reality that we need to live with, that some weak people are going to die in the conflicts of the world, whether that be through a virus, or through a war, or through other monsters like PDF files, if you get what I'm saying. It's not right that it happens, right? It's not right that these people are in trouble, but these children, but it is inevitable. These people exist. The evil people exist. And we need to deal with them as well. So we need to face towards them. And sometimes that means that innocent people die too. Imagine you're a police officer and you had to choose, right? You had to choose between saving one person and not catching a killer, or letting the killer kill the person, but then you at least catch the killer so they can't kill again. And they've been on a killing spree before. Which one do you pick? Do you let the innocent person die so you can catch the killer or finally stop him from killing anyone else? Or do you prioritize saving the person who's right in front of you there? That is the real simile, the metaphor that I like to use for the current conflict in Israel-Palestine. Collective punishment is sometimes necessary. Because if you don't, then the killers get off scot-free. they can get away with it. You need to send a message to the ideology. Thank you all for watching. Share this with your friends. Leave your thoughts below. Leave a like as well. Subscribe for more. You won't be seeing much of me on this channel, but trust me, there will be great content on here about political situations and about our ideology further on. We also have a manifesto which you can get on Amazon. Even though we're not a fan of Amazon, it was the best way for us to get it out there. Yeah. But you can also just read the free version. It should be in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys someday.